Right on. All right, cool. All right, so if this is your first community of practice, just give you a brief overview. If you've heard it before, welcome back. But this is our space where we like to connect movers and shakers across the country around environmental and social equity to learn about topics that will improve their work and also get an opportunity to connect and learn from others that are doing this work, this incredible work across the country. And so we really want this to be an opportunity to have conversations about our work. I think oftentimes we're working in our work and we don't get to step away and think about our work. And then really learn from those that are leading some of these spaces. So as I mentioned today, we're platforming SGF as somebody that you can learn from and how they have a rich history in community organizing and how they are adding data literacy into some of their organizing strategies. And who is Greenlink Analytics? Just for a background on us, we are an Atlanta-based nonprofit organization, but we do work nationally. So we have team members that from all over the US. And our mission is to work together to advance a clean energy transition as fast and fair as possible. We do that by combining our expertise as energy and equity researchers and really focusing on doing bottom-up policy and program design in this space. And we work with cities all over the country, but really want to champion also the community-based organizations and grassroots organizations doing the work on the ground. Again, like you will hear from SGF today. All right, well, without further ado, I am going to pass the mic to Ms. Adrienne to introduce SGF and the WeatheRISE program.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adrienne Rice. I am the founder and the executive director. Okay, it just got loud in the back of me. I'm at a conference, y'all. It was doing fine at first. So I'm going to speak up. So, and of Sustainable Georgia Futures. And I'm here today with wonderful program manager, Ty Wilson. Ty, I'll let you say something.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. So this WeatheRISE ATL info session, we did this presentation on June 15th when we wanted to bring in all of the community at the strategy planning session, and it also let folks know where we were at. So this is what this is about, and we're going to talk about the WeatheRISE ATL campaign. Ty and I will do that. We're going to talk about SGF and our organizing methods and strategy. And then we're going to use, towards the end, we're going to utilize an organizing tool. And some of you all have, if you've come to our CJAM, our climate justice education meetings, you've participated and you've been able to utilize this tool, we hope, and, practice this tool as well. All right. So our mission and our vision. So we are nonpartisan, we're a grassroots organization and Black women-led organization, and we are dedicated to creating pathways to clean energy and green economy and the green economy for specifically Black people, but people of color. But we like to say specifically Black people because statistically, when we look across the board, when you're looking at clean energy jobs and pathways to it, Black folks are like dead last heat. And when you are looking at women and you're looking at Black women, the statistics is even worse. So we feel as though that there needs to be some intentionality around focusing on those groups of people. So we just don't think that we can just focus on workforce development and creating those pathways for Black people because of these issues that we know that we have. We know we have to address two of our nation's largest problems. We just can't address climate change without addressing systemic racism. And so that's what we try to do with our programming and our organizing. All right, so I have over 20 years of experience organizing in labor, organizing with political and community engagement. And the Industrial Ally Foundation This was a group, they came up with this cycle of organizing campaigns. And at SGF, we base our work on organizing on this cycle. So we have 4 phases that we go through, that we're going through. We're on like the second year. Next year will be our 3rd year on with this strategy, but we use a loop. And so with organizing, you know, we feel like by using this loop, it keeps us on track. So this organizing cycle, we are identifying leaders and activists, and we're able to do that with the WeatheRISE campaign. We train our leaders so that they can engage. We are creating organizing committees and teams, and sometimes that can be in the form of neighborhood team leads. And what we're really trying to do is build power. So we want to build power in these communities so that they can engage in the way that is most beneficial to them. And these are just the cycles and the ways in the way in which we go about doing that. Next slide. So we talked about the 4 phases, and we really have about a 3 to 4 year campaign that we were working on. Our first campaign is, you know, and it really goes into this, it's a fluid method, but in some years we're focusing in on certain phases more than other. So, you know, we had our prep, our first year prep and our research. We did a little bit of canvassing to try to identify some of the issues that are most deeply and widely felt within our communities. And for the first year, that's what we really was focused on. We were identifying leaders and activists, but we really wasn't honing in on it at that point. So now we're in the second year. So we wanted to build capacity, and we're building capacity with our leaders and activists and allies. So, I mean, we train people on how to do power mapping and all of these things, and how to identify leaders and activists, and how to develop leaders and activists, because this is what we feel is what's going to help us address those 2 issues that we talked about. So we're in that phase right now. And before the city of Atlanta approached us and asked us to do WeatheRISE campaign, we had a campaign called the Sankofa Community Issue Assembly. And so what we were in the middle of doing is identifying percentages of leaders and activists in communities throughout North Georgia, so that we could identify issues that we could organize around. So we're in that process right now with WeatheRISE, on top of the WeatheRISE work that we're doing. We're in that process right now. And then next year, we're going to be going more so into the identifying leaders and activists. We're going to stay on that a little bit more. And then we're going to transition into engagement, growth, and issue identification. So we'll still do that Sankofa Community Issue Assemblies campaign, but it's going to be connected with more leadership. And then finally, once we have identified those issues, once we have built that capacity, once we have done all those things, we're going to do collective action and hopefully change and implement policy. So anything that SGF does, I don't know how many people are aware of Climate Justice Alliance. Great group. I've had the opportunity to work with them, and we totally got this from them and we let them know we were taking it, and they were like, yes, that's what we created it for. So we hope y'all take it too. The way that we want to show up in the world and the way that we want to move in the world, we don't want to move in the world in an extractive way. We want to move in a way that is not taking away resources from communities, from the earth, overusing it. This is why we're in the problem that we're in right now with climate change and systemic racism. So at SGF, we try our best not to do that. We try to move with that mindset of regenerative. Regenerative is more circular. It focused not just on the economies, it focused on the people and the planet. And that's what we try to base everything that we do off of regenerative ways. So we live in a world of abundance and not scarcity. And so we feel like that is a part of a regenerative economy. So Ty, I think, am I supposed to do this one?
I can take it from here. I think this is where I kick off, but we
Okay.
can tag team it if you'd like to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hey everybody, I'm Ty Wilson, Program Manager with Sustainable Georgia Futures. And I'm here at one of our staging sites for this project, and we'll get more into what the WeatheRISE ATL campaign is. But first, we wanted to highlight what the core issue around WeatheRISE ATL is. So what is weatherization and why even weatherize your home? A lot of us on this call are aware that the impacts that happen with the climate don't all fall equally amongst people. We all do experience climate change and alterations in climate, right? But the impacts of those don't land equally. And especially on Black communities and communities of color, those impacts are especially disastrous. So extractive policies and discrimination, like redlining, widening the racial wealth gap, any housing, education, and employment discrimination, all of those have contributed to the state. They kind of broken the foundation, and then climate change is the walls that are trying to be built up on that foundation that's already broken. So one of the biggest factors that jeopardize home ownership within the US for Black families is this issue of weatherization. So if we're putting everything together, right, like redlining has already made it difficult for Black and communities of color, but Black communities especially, to access housing that is fair, healthy, clean, safe, right? And then the widening racial wealth gap has made it more difficult to maintain your housing if you own a home and create that legacy home ownership where homes are being passed down from family member to family member. And then as the house gets older, it needs weatherization. So windows to be recaulked so that there aren't any holes or gaps, doors to be refitted as the house, moves and shifts. Even light bulbs to be changed from standard light bulbs to LED light bulbs. So those kind of encompass what weatherization is, but sometimes weatherization can be very expensive. So the city of Atlanta, through ARPA funding, American Rescue Plan funding, had created the pilot program for weatherization in the city in the Southwest, most energy burdened areas of the city through WeatheRISE ATL. So one of the key components with weatherization, or one of the key kind of outcomes of weatherization or lack of weatherization, is energy burden. And energy burdens, how many folks on the call have heard of energy burdens, have calculated their energy burden? See a few hands. Yep. So energy burden it's a very real issue. And essentially, energy burden at its core is, if you take your monthly income and you have your number right here, let's say you make $1,200 a month. I'm going to pull out a calculator really, really quick because math is not my strong suit. So if we have $1,200 for your monthly income, if you're spending over 6% of your monthly income on energy bills, you are considered energy burdened. So if that $1,200 a month, if your energy bill is over $72, you're considered to be energy burdened. So what that means is there may be gaps or, parts of the home that could be sealed to keep what's outside and what's inside. And if air is escaping through the home, then you're going to want to crank up your crank up your thermostat higher in the winter to keep more warm air in, or crank it down lower in the summer to keep cooler air in. So with that home affordability, that's part of the building envelope and consideration, right, of whether you can stay within your home. And the more energy burdened a community is, or a house is, then the more likely it is that you may be displaced if you have a higher energy burden. So weatherization helps to prevent those energy burdens from getting out of control. So
Can I say something else?
absolutely.
And yes, in Atlanta, we are, we have neighborhood planning units, and Ty's going to get to that. $1,200 a month. How many people here are thinking, wow, I can't live off of $1,200 a month? Okay. So there are people in Atlanta living off $1,200 a month and less that, because we have a state minimum wage of $5.15 an hour. We have a racial wealth gap of 26,000, a little bit over 26,000 for the average Black family, to 83,000 of the average white. So we have the highest income inequality in the nation here in Atlanta. So this is really real and really present.
And a lot of times, to build off of Adrienne's point, right, when you have a state minimum wage of $5.15 an hour and you're trying to maintain ownership of your home, of your family home, a lot of times when you're looking at the spread of what you have to pay for month to month anyway, groceries, gas if you have a car maintenance, school fees, and things for kids, I mean, doctor's appointments, all of those things, weatherizing your home tends to be one of the last things that you put within your monthly spending, if you're spending on it monthly. And with the WeatheRISE ATL pilot program, there's a recognition and empathy for that, right? And that is a key feature to this program too. It is a pilot, so this is just an initial brush. And the goal of this program is to reduce the energy burden on households in Atlanta's highest energy burden areas through energy efficiency retrofits. So we said earlier that energy burden starts at about 6%, right? The communities that we are in and we're letting know about this WeatheRISE ATL program through phase 1 of the program, some of these communities have energy burdens as high as 20 to 25%. There are people who are paying energy bills that rival how much you pay for rent or for a mortgage. We're talking $600 and upwards. And as we've been going through the campaign, we have seen people reporting that they have $600+ energy bills. So this is a very serious issue. Luckily, this program is happening in phases so that it's an ongoing kind of project. The time basis originally was 1 year, but we're looking at extending that because the need is so pervasive. And we are one part of that phase, of those phases. Greenlink is also a part of those phases. And they're actually, the team at Greenlink has used the gem map as a representation to represent what energy burden looks like throughout Atlanta and throughout the country. So Greenlink is over project phase 3, which is data processing, analysis, and reporting. SGF, or Sustainable Georgia Futures, we're in charge of outreach, intake, education, and customer service, so phase 1. And then phase 2, on-site delivery of energy efficiency audits and interventions, comes from the National Association of Minority Contractors, or NAMAC. So throughout the process, because we are in predominantly Southwest Atlanta, we're talking about areas that are majority Black areas. And when you have a contractor, when you hear about this program and you're thinking, okay, somebody's going to come into my house, or as a homeowner, and you're thinking somebody's going to come into my house and do these, fix it kind of things, right? You would love for that contractor to look like you. Circular economy is very important. I would argue for any community, but in Black communities especially, it is vital because of how much dispossession has happened. So seeing a Black contractor come into your house, deliver those services, someone who looks like they could be a cousin or a younger brother, or, seeing that representation there and knowing that the time and payment for those services is going back into your community is so important. And that's why we're so lucky to be working with NAMAC on this, because they have the Black contractor network. And then Greenlink with data processing, analysis, and reporting. Y'all have been with Greenlink before, have engaged with community of practice and seeing their maps and seeing, newsletters and seeing how they move work. So y'all know that this is going to be an incredible piece of the project. And it's so great to have Greenlink on, especially because there's this fundamental understanding that how we tell the story of this data is vital. Who owns this data is vital. And we have those discussions, frankly and openly amongst all three project partners, because we understand the importance and we don't, as Adrienne said earlier, want to replicate extractive systems. So Adrienne mentioned earlier too, neighborhood planning units or NPUs. So I'll kind of condense what's in the wording right here. In the 1970s, Atlanta had its first Black mayor, Mayor Maynard Jackson, and he was a mayor that was really committed to making sure that Black communities, by and large, had more accessibility and representation within Atlanta's city government. He knew on some level that he didn't get to his mayoral position by himself. He needed the Black community to support him. So in turn, he did his best to support them. And one of the ways that he did that was by establishing the neighborhood planning unit system. So neighborhood planning units are kind of quasi-governmental entities. The city of Atlanta is divided into 26 of these units, and each of them services communities, within the bounds of them. And the neighborhood planning unit can address city government and hold them accountable for their actions. If they say that the city is going to repair a road in NPUH, then the neighborhood planning unit can be like, okay, when is this road getting repaired? Who's going to come out to repair it? That's kind of the function, right? To distill government down into more attainable and impactful kind of, I lost my word, pieces.
Yeah, way of
say.
doing things. And let me add on to that with the strategy of what we're thinking about and how this backs up SGF strategy. So we, as we said in the phase, that we're trying to identify leaders and activists, right? So in service component 1 with Greenlink Analytics, GEM, mapping program, we were able to identify 11 neighborhood planning units that are suffering with the highest energy burdens. And Ty's going to talk more about that on the other slide. But it aligns with our strategy, our organizing strategy, because now, since we have already started knocking on doors, and our goal is that we are supposed to hit over 5,000 doors in these 11 NPUs, and sign up at least 200 to receive those energy retrofits that Ty talked about. So, but it also allows us an opportunity to identify leaders and activists in the community. amongst those 5,000 doors that we're knocking on in 11 NPUs. So this campaign has given us a jump start on that, because our numbers initially with the Sankofa Community Issue Assembly that I talked about was much smaller than this. So we have like quadruple the amount of people that we were looking to engage this year, just with this campaign. All right, Ty.
And that's what makes this campaign so powerful, right? Is that the way that phase one has been structured in organizing and making sure that we can reach those goals that Adrienne mentioned is by working with community members as Canvas ambassadors. And we call them ambassadors because they are really with us in the trenches of this, right? Like going to neighborhood planning unit NPU meetings and talking about the WeatheRISE ATL campaign, inviting friends and family and mobilizing their communities too to know more about what WeatheRISE ATL is, and not just what this pilot program is, but also what other services are around in the city, through the state, maybe even federal programming that can help you maintain your housing and improve your housing so that you have lower energy costs, yes, but also a cleaner home, a healthier home, especially. And some of these generational kind of illnesses can be remediated through the weatherization process. So we'll go ahead and get into a little bit about how we've used the Greenlink gem map to realize that's kind of redundant now that I say it, but how we've used Greenlink's gem for canvassing and kind of give a little bit of an update on where we are. So our brief within phase one of the WeatheRISE ATL program was to, as Adrienne mentioned, knock on 5,000 doors, sign up 200 people to receive 200 homeowners to receive energy efficiency retrofits, and accomplish all of that in 10 weeks. So we are currently in the middle, towards the tail end of week 6. And throughout the 6 weeks, we've used GEM to get a more specific and granular picture of what energy burden looks like within the NPUs that we are canvassing. So this photo on your, it's on my right-hand side, but the photo is a depiction of, it's kind of like a heat map of energy burden in the city of Atlanta. So you can see Southwest, which is on your like bottom left-hand side. There's a serious need, right? Energy burdens within these areas are averaging about 10%. And then where we are right now, honestly, it's really close there, is Thomasville Heights, which is in that most high energy burden area. So NPU-Z is right there where that highest energy burden is, that almost brown looking area. So the need for a program like WeatheRISE, and especially supporting programs as well that are coming through Invest Atlanta, through the Department of Energy, all of those are very much needed throughout Southwest. So we've used the GEM system in order to really nail down, and it gets really granular, y'all, like to the point of you can see certain streets that have highest energy burden. So that really helps us when we're doing colloquially what we know in canvassing is turf cutting. So when we're deciding where to go, which homes to hit, who to speak to, it helps us get really granular to focus on what parts of even the neighborhood that we should really focus on to make sure that the people who need a program like WeatheRISE the most have access to it. So using the GEM system, it's really helped us boost our numbers. So the doors currently, as of this morning, the doors knocked we're already at almost 2,200 doors out of 5,000. And we've already collected upwards of 180 surveys. So just because of the surveys have been collected doesn't necessarily mean a homeowner apply or qualifies to receive a retrofit. So we're really trying to blow that number up even further beyond the 200 so that there's a good pool for NAMAC to pull from of the 200. And that's how we've been, collaborating with Greenlink throughout, and really talking about how the data story is told and integrating the stories that we hear on the doors as we're talking with community members into what the numbers say. So that's a little bit about the WeatheRISE ATL program, weatherization, the GEM system, and we're going to get into a house meeting.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go through that right quick. So instead of us doing a Q&A, because we could do Q&As, but we like to allow all voices to be allowed to get into to be in the room. So the way that we do this is we use this organizing tool, and we're teaching this. We didn't come up with this. So we want to talk a little bit about where we got this from. Okay, so it's house meeting time, as we like to say at SGF. Next slide, please. So how many people know this guy, right? So that's Martin Luther King, which is so important. We're in Atlanta, right now. But really, where house meetings really were identified at, because we did have people like Bob Moses and Fannie Lou Hamer and all of them having house meetings. So house meetings is something that is happening throughout the civil rights movement in different eras through movements. But really, we began to coin this tool during the United Food and Farm Workers campaign. So how many people know Cesar Chavez? And so those groups, they use this tool because, they were primarily, sharecroppers. Planning, and the bosses that were over, they didn't want them to know about the meetings that they were having when they were organizing, just like in the civil rights movement, or house meetings. Just because we call it a house meeting, you can have a house meeting anywhere. So, and the reason why we do house meetings right now is we do it so that we can build those relationships and we can build that power, because power is built off of relationships. All right. So house meetings is a key tool. It's one of the key tools. It's the second most useful tool. We also train about the first most useful tool, which is the one-on-one conversation. That's the most powerful tool. But house meetings help us do that because it brings stuff together. So it's helping us build that power. All right. So the way that we do house meetings is this. We do 8 to 12 people per house meeting because we don't want it to be too many, right? And we found even doing it online, you can still keep that 8 to 12 number. Sometimes you can go a little bit over when you have a seasoned facilitator, which, by the way, you have 2 that are here. We got a couple, probably some other ones in the room. And what we do is it is timed, okay? So there's some rules of the house meeting, y'all. The house meeting is timed. And so you get about, I think, 90 seconds, right, Ty, per person. First of all, you demonstrate your own story, right? We're going to have a probing question that's coming up. Typically, a house meeting takes 60 to 90 minutes, but we're just going to give y'all a taste today. Whatever time we have left, we're just going to do it. And I think everybody will be able to have an opportunity to do it. We're going to ask some Greenlink folks that are in the house meeting with us while we're facilitating it to keep time of the stories. So number 1 rule, before we get into it and get some community agreements, and can I have the next slide? Let me see what the next slide is. Okay, so let's get some community agreements. The first community, do anybody on here know what community agreements are? Okay. So got a couple of folks on here. I saw a couple of, thumbs up, but I'm just going to tell you what they are just in case you forgot. So it's how we're going to be in community together, right? How we're going to be in a space together where we're respecting everyone in a regenerative way and not in an extractive way. So one of the most extractive ways that you could be is coming into a house meeting, telling someone else's story. We have a calling. We call that something. We say, you're pimping somebody else's story. And we don't want any of that, okay? So whenever you talk about something, talk about you. You're important. Your story is interesting. Your story is important, okay? It may be different from others, but we're not in a competition. So we just want to hear from you, okay? The other rule, all right, that we have to put out here, the only person who can interrupt is the facilitators, okay? So we can interrupt, all right? And then the third thing is that we want all voices in the room. So we're gonna time it. And so we'll let you go a little bit past, because I'm Southern, I'll let you slide a little bit. But I need a hardcore timekeeper with me because I have a problem with that. Cut you off right away so other people can be in the room. All right. So those are our community agreements. Those are the rules and some community agreements. Are there any other agreements that we want to put in the chat right quick that you need? And it looks like we have 12 to 14 minutes. We can make it happen.
All right. Well, feel free to put some of those in the chat as they come to mind, because we can definitely address them. Adrienne, I just want to check in. We have 14 people. So do you still want to split out into two groups, 7 and 7?
Yeah, let's do it because I think that'll make it quicker. Sure. And the probing question is, before today, have you ever considered your own energy burdens? Or you could, what does or would energy burdens keep you from doing financially? If it would. All right.
Cool. Well, I think Sammy's going to queue up the breakout. So we will. Oh, good.
And Sammy, can you bring us back and give us 3 minutes to do a quick debrief?
Will do.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see y'all.
I'm going to stop recording while we're in meetings.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I got a heart. Okay.
We got a heart. There you go. We got a couple hearts in there. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any last final words? Otherwise, we are going to close out. But appreciate many of you guys coming. Anything else? I see a couple off mic. Jeffrey, you want to say anything?
I'm wondering if folks are interested in following up and learning more, or getting resources around kind of, some of that work, some of this process that you're leading, or some Climate Justice Alliance resources. Where can they contact you or look for that kind of thing?
Oh, I think it's on the next slide.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Great.
There we go.
Thank you so much.
Yes, please reach out. I know in our conversations that we were just starting to make connections on certain, intellectual capacities that could be beneficial for FGF's work on the ground, as well as vice versa. So all you guys should be connected via email, and you can always reach out to SGF directly or Greenlink, and we'll put you in connection with this group. That's exactly what the community of practice is for, is for you guys to meet each other, get connected. If it makes sense, build capacity on each other's work, so we're not recreating anything. So that's a beautiful thing. But feel free to take a picture of this, but we will send a follow-up email with this information, with the PowerPoint, with the recorded presentation from today as well. And again, so you should be able to reach out directly. But if there's anything else, feel free to reach out to Samantha and I as well. We're here to support you. But special thanks for SGF joining us today and telling us about their amazing work, and wishing them good luck in the rest of their endeavors, as well as many of our partners that help us put this together, including our development partners, Upright Consulting, which Mina is a part of here today, and our leadership committee. So thank you everyone for joining us. But I hope this was really fruitful and you took away some really foundational things. We're always open to your your feedback. But in the meantime, please take care. Okay.
Bye,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Bye.